Beautiful. Today, I'm going to talk about the Sutra of the demonstration of the inconceivable state of Buddhahood Sutra. Have any of you read this before? A couple of people. It's very incredible. It's very deep, though. Have patience. Listen with your heart. You're not going to get it all, okay? You have the light on, please? Thank you. You're not going to get it all, but it's okay. Just listen with your heart, because it's talking about, it's kind of a misnomer, because when you say, is there a state of Buddhahood? And the sutra, a little bit further down, and I'll clue you in when it says that, explains whether there's a state of Buddhahood or not, because you've heard me talk about that the Buddha mind is not a state of mind. So you'd say, you know, when I read that, I've gone, that's interesting. How can they say that it's a state of Buddhahood? But we'll get to that. That this is part of the whole thing in terms of it. It's kind of like a teaser to get you to read it. Say, I don't know about that. But then when you look at it, I mean, it is the reason I wanted to present it to you is I want to take it to a higher level of realization with respect to what a bodhisattva is. And I think that that's really important, because we have this devotional idea of a bodhisattva. And I do too have a devotion to bodhisattvas and the Buddhas. But I also understand what they represent. I also understand the statues and why the statues are made the way they are, because of historically and culturally what they represented from the ideation from artists that read sutras about them and said, Guanggong, he's very fierce. We're going to give him a red face to scare the heck out of everybody. Or Wei Pusa, the Dharma protector, with a big sword. And it's very, very interesting, because we look at these and we give devotion to them, but then we have to also see them in ourselves. But there's another aspect of this esoteric that's very, very strange. So I have this one statue on my altar, the Guanggong on one side and Wei Pusa on the other. They're the Dharma protector, so they're on the side of making sure nothing comes in. And the Wei To's like this, very stately, and he has a sword like that that he holds. You know, like, don't mess with me. I'm in repose, but I'll knock you out in a moment if you try to harm the Dharma or any of these people that I'm protecting. And they're kind of like the Buddha Secret Service. No, they're ready to go into action at any time. And once, when I was very young, and I was lighting the incense, and then I had the incense, and it's flaming. You know, the little stick is flaming, and I went, I wonder if it's taboo to blow the incense out rather than try to shake it. What do you think? Do you think that that's taboo, that you shouldn't blow the incense stick? This is kind of like a weird story, but what do you think? Huh?
I think it's usually considered taboo to blow it.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But as soon as I finished that thought, Wei To's sword literally flew off the altar and landed at my toes. Seriously, I you know, sometimes I say some weird stuff, but I don't lie. Okay, I don't lie. That is exactly what happened. And may Mara take Harry if I'm lying. It literally just flew off like spinning and landed right in front of my toes. And I go, well, I guess I got my answer. It was very, very strange. And how do we explain things like that? I mean, there's so much in terms of this. Why I always say what appears to be real is unreal, but what is unreal is real. And it's very, very strange. Talking about faith, you know, and seeing these kinds of very super mundane acts happen, it's very, very strange. So if you ever want an answer to anything, just go in front of the altar and ask. But be prepared. You might get Guanggong to slice at you. But in any case, I tell this story because it's kind of incredulous, but it also points to this whole aspect of what a bodhisattva is, because you have to suspend your samsaric reasoning to be able to see it from a different viewpoint. And the viewpoint is one, just like Nagarjuna, it neither confirms nor denies, but somewhere in this wondrous middle of mind, it explains it, but it can't explain it necessarily in words completely, but it explains it in very curious ways. That's why I say, so hang in there with this. You're not going to get all of it, but I couldn't present anything else today to you. Okay, so we'll see. We'll probably have to take 2 periods to do this. So it says, once the Buddha was dwelling in the garden in Anatha Pindika in the Jeta Grove near Sarvasti, accompanied by 1,000 monks, 10,000 bodhisattva mahasabhas, and gods of the realm of desire and the realm of form. At that time, the bodhisattva mahasabha, Manjusri. So when we say a bodhi, he's a bodhisattva, but a mahasabha, maha means the highest. So he's like the leader of the bodhisattvas, very high level, and he's, you could say he and Kuan Yin Pusa of Avalokiteshvara are Buddhas that have eschewed Buddhahood in order to come back to the samsara to deliver sentient beings. And the gods Sugana were both present among the assembly, and the world honored one, and I'm sure you know world honored one means the Buddha, told Manjusri, you should explain the profound state of Buddhahood for celestial beings and bodhisattvas in the assembly. So, you know, what is this state of Buddhahood? And Manjusri said, so be it, world honored one. If good men and good women wish to know the state of Buddhahood, they should know that it is not a state of eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind. It is not a state of forms, sounds, smells, taste, touch, thought, or mental objects. That's, I guess. World honored one, the non-state of the state of Buddhahood. I'm sorry, world honored one, the non-state is the state of Buddhahood. So now he's saying the state of Buddhahood is the non-state. So you go, well, that clears everything up, right? But he's saying what I was saying the first time I looked at it and said, there is no state of Buddhahood, but the state of Buddhahood is a non-state because it can't be a state. And we'll get to that in a moment. This being the case, what is the state of the supreme enlightenment as attained by the Buddha? The Buddha said, it is a state of emptiness because all views are equal. It is a state of signlessness because all signs are equal. The state of wishlessness because all 3 realms are equal. It is a state of non-action because all actions are equal. It is a state of the unconditioned because all conditioned things are equal. So this is very interesting in terms of how he's talking about this. And just kind of like a refresher, we have these two words. One of them is conditioned and the other is unconditioned. So the unconditioned is often referred to as the mind ground or the Buddha, and the condition is that which appears in that mind ground. It's conditioned due to cause and effect that it appears. But since it's temporary, it's not truly something. It's just impermanent. And it has the characteristic of emptiness. So we call it empty because it's not something that that's going to be there tomorrow. No, it's something different. And so, and also this idea of equality is very, very important. When we sit and meditate, we have to maintain a mind of equanimity. This is very, very important, that this mind, in fact, in the Theravadins, in their jhanas, in terms of the practice, the highest is the state of equanimity, where everything is seen just as it is. Like when we did the practice outside the second practice, you're seeing everything equally, but you notice everything because one thing doesn't hold you up and catch your attention. You're able to see everything. And this is how a Buddha sees, not from the sake of a linear thinking, but boom, it's all there. Manjushri asked, world honored one, what is the state of unconditioned? Didn't I just explain this to you guys? All right. So he says, the Buddha said, the absence of thought is the state of the unconditioned. Manjushri said, world honored one, if the states of the unconditioned and so forth are state of Buddhahood and the state of the unconditioned is the absence of thought, then on what basis is the state of Buddhahood expressed? Where it says, how can there be a state of Buddhahood if all of this stuff is all equal? And if there is no such basis, then there's nothing to be said. And since there's nothing to be said, nothing to be expressed, therefore, world honored one, the state of Buddhahood is inexpressible in words. So he's saying, no matter how you try to express it, the words have a limitation because they themselves are conditioned. Whereas they're trying to explain the unconditioned, it's not possible. The Buddha asked Manjushri, does the state of Buddhahood increase or decrease? What do you think? You know this one, right? Heart sutra, right? Neither increase nor decrease. It neither increases or decreases. See how smart you guys are? How the Buddha asked, how can one comprehend the basic nature of defilements of all sentient beings? So how do we understand what is the nature of all the defilements of sentient beings? And he says that just as the state of Buddhahood neither increases or decreases, so by their nature, the defilements neither increase or decrease. And so the Buddha asked him, what is the basic nature of defilements? Defilements, I don't know, what is the term in Chinese? You guys know? Huh? Say it loud so the people can hear. Right? Yeah. I'm saying that because some of these words in English, you may not understand them in English. So we say them in Chinese so that way you understand, because it's important. So this word of defilement means that something is corrupting, something is causing harm, something that's not correct. And so
Where was that? That was stand down? Yes. Like vexation, stand down? Yeah.
This is also the
Wow, you guys all have different words, but this is good. But, huh? A defilement is a corruption or something that's not correct, something that is a misperception, but it's also like an action based upon that, you know. So if I was going to say to you, you know, no, I won't say it because even you might think that I meant it. If I was to say to a magically produced person here, you're such a fool, you know, you don't know that. No, that might be a defilement because of my ignorance of how I might harm that person by saying that. When I was very young and starting out, there was somebody that asked me and said, you know, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, and just sincerely, I said, you will never know. And meaning that you can never know, but he quit. So that even that was a defilement because it didn't have the wisdom for that moment, you know, to see things. But defilements can be something where you just say something or act or think something that is not wholesome. Okay. Okay. So, and he says the basic nature of defilements is the basic nature of Buddhahood. If the nature of defilements were different from the nature of Buddhahood, then it could not be said that the Buddha abides in equality of all things. It is because the nature of defilement is the very nature of Buddhahood that is said to be abide in equality. So it's saying because it is this, you know, the nature of the Buddha includes also the defilements. It can't be separate from that. This is very, very high level, but very, very important that in order for something to be unconditioned, it has to include everything. And in a state of equanimity, we see the defilements here in samsara and say killing is bad. The Buddha nature sees it as an appearance of causes and conditions that is there. And it's a natural occurrence of that. And we try to impose upon the Buddha nature some form of morality that arises in samsara. And because of that, then we hold the Buddha up to a very high, pure standard, but the standard is fabricated from thought and beliefs in samsara, not true reality. This is, some of you are nodding, some of you are going like, what the heck is he talking about? But it's okay. It's all right. I'm giving you a different perspective to this. Some of you can do it because you've read sutras that sound similar. Others, you don't understand this, but what I'm trying to do is trying to get you past what appears to be contradictions in what's being said. And they're going through and they're laying this out, and it's very, very clear. But if upon the first hearing of it and not having any kind of an understanding of this before, it's difficult to do because your samsaric mind is going, I don't get this, but it's all right. It's all right. Just hang in there with me. The Buddha asks further, what is the equality? What equality do you think Tathagata abides? So what is this equality that the Tathagata has? As I understand it, the Tathagata abides in exactly the same equality in which sentient beings who act with desire, hatred, ignorance abide. How can that be? So this is not easy stuff, right? Because you're going like, whoa, hold on. I thought the Buddha was above all that stuff. But everything is created by the mind. If everything's created in the mind, how could that not be part of the Buddha mind? And how could it not be in there in this way? You're not blaming the Buddha for these things to happen, but in some way you can say you're blaming the Buddha because cause and condition never fail. All of these things are there, but the Buddha is not some holy person sitting on a throne somewhere wearing clothes from 2,500 years ago. Okay. So he said, in what equality do those sentient beings who act with the three poisons abide? And you know what the three poisons are, right? Okay, greed, hatred, and ignorance. Okay, he gave you a breather on that line. They abide in the equality of emptiness, signless, and wishlessness. The Buddha asked Manjushri, in emptiness, how could there be desire, hatred, and ignorance? So if everything's empty and there's this quality, how can these things be? These three poisons. This is a very logical question that should come up. Manjushri answered, right in that which exists, there is emptiness, wherein desire, hatred, and ignorance are all also found. So they're found there too. How could they not be? Because everything's in a state of equality, of an inclusiveness. So they're there also in this emptiness. The Buddha asks, in what existence is there emptiness? So this is kind of a roundabout way of saying, is emptiness real? Does it have an existence? Think about this. It's empty. So let's say we just went out, 5 light years into space, nothing around. And does that space exist? Because we say, what is space? Space is a place that's vacuous. It doesn't have anything. Doesn't even have any kind of minerals or whatever. Does it exist? Go back to you. So in what existence is there emptiness? Emptiness is said to exist only in words and language because there is emptiness. Because there is emptiness, there is desire, hatred, and ignorance. So if we did not have desire, hatred, and ignorance, we would not have to say, those things are empty. So the Heart Sutra wouldn't have to say, no, Sariputra, it's not real, it's empty. But that only exists in words and phrases. But in fact, in absolute reality, there's no such thing as the emptiness or something to be called emptiness. The Buddha has said, monks, non-arising, non-conditioning, non-action, non-origination, all exist. If these did not exist, then how could one speak of arising, conditioning, action, or origination? Therefore, monks, because there are non-arising, non-conditioning, non-action, non-origination, one can speak of arising, conditioning, action, or origination. Again, it's something that if you talk about this, then you have to talk about that there is no non-arising, because you'd have to explain it in samsara in this way. But in its absolute truth, there's no such thing, either one of them, either emptiness or arising or non-arising. Here, the attempt is getting you to see things from the perception of the Buddha, not from the perception of samsara. So it starts to kind of grate on you because you're going like, I don't know about this. I don't know, because you're looking at it from the samsara. So you have to make this leap outside of your perceived existence to look at it from this right view. If you can look at it from this right view, everything will just fall into the void immediately. I don't want to go to the void. That's your problem. The Buddha said, Manjushri, if this is the case, there must be, as you said, that who abides in defilements and abides in emptiness. Manjushri said, world honored one, if a meditator seeks emptiness apart from defilements, his search will be in vain. How could there be emptiness that differs from defilements? If he contemplates the defilements as emptiness, he is said to engage in the right practice. If he contemplates the defilements as emptiness, then he is said to be engaged in the right practice, right view practice. When you're sitting to meditate, if you're there and you're meditating and you treat all appearances that are arising as empty, then that's the right practice. That's the thing that keeps you from being able to turn the corner on your practice, because you're still dazzled by all these things that are going by or bothered by them, all of these thoughts that are arising. But if you see them as belonging to mind, being created by mind, with no self there, you see them as they are, that they are mind. There's no need to push them out of mind or to suppress them. You just simply see things as they are from the perception of the Buddha mind. That is where you will get illumination of the mind, not from trying to create it in your mind and putting your stamp of approval on mental states that are arising in mind. And there's no mental states, it's just simply returning mind to mind. So this is germane to you sitting on the cushion, to doing it in the right way. You want to do it this way, which is the shortcut, or you want to take 3 kalpas to sit till you figure out this is not working. Okay. The Buddha asked, Manjushri, do you detach yourself from defilements or abide in them? So do you detach from them or do you abide in them? So are you in them? Because now what he's doing is we're kind of getting an idea of what a bodhisattva is. And so the bodhisattva decides to come back to the samsaric world. So in the samsaric world, does Manjushri or Guanxin Pusa or Disan Pusa, Samantabhadra, do they detach themselves from defilements? I mean, do they go around and go like, ew, give me a napkin, please, or do they abide in them? Hey, you want to have a beer? Sure, let's go have a beer. I'm putting it in the vernacular of the present day, but that's what he's asking him. Do they do that? What do you think? I'm sorry? They have a beer? Okay. What kind? I mean, I don't know. So do they have a beer or do they detach themselves? What do you think? It's kind of an interesting one, right? Use expedient means. Okay. He's giving you the politician version. It's all right though. It's okay because he's kind of looking and saying, this is a trick John question if I've ever seen one. Okay. Manjushri said, world honored one, if a meditator seeks emptiness apart from defilements, his search will be in vain. How could there be an emptiness that differs from defilements? Remember, everything's in a state of equanimity. And so we don't define emptiness like empty space. We define it as everything is empty. It's fundamentally empty because it's impermanent. That everything, even though it appears to be conditioned, it comes from the unconditioned. If he contemplates defilements as emptiness, he is said to engage in the right practice. So contemplating defilements as emptiness, now he's engaged in the right practice. Manjushri, oh, I'm sorry, I think I might have jumped up and apologize. all defilements are equal in reality. I have realized that equality through right practice. Therefore, I neither detach myself from defilements nor abide in them. If a Shramaga and a Brahmin claims that they've overcome passions and sees others as being defiled, like, I'm enlightened, but you're not. If they have that kind of a feeling, he is falling into the two extreme views. So what are the two extreme views? One of them would be eternalism, meaning everything is all there. Oh, it sounds like they're a body. So that's an extreme view. And the other one would be nihilism. There's nothing there. Everything's just like an empty can. So a Shramaga is, hold on, is, I had a bug or something on me. Sorry. Is a seeker, someone that's looking for the truth. And a Brahmin, as used here, is not a Brahmin from the caste system. So you have to understand when Brahmin is used to represent a caste system in India, or used here as a master of some religion. So here they're referring to it as a master of some religion, some high religious person. And so he's saying, if these sound hearers, these people that are doing this, or this Brahmin does it, these seekers or this Brahmin, and they say, I'm enlightened, but you're not, then he says, and that's wrong. That it's not that way. And so there was this real, how do I say, there's so many underpinnings to this statement that's being made, and also you could say religious political underpinnings to it, to prevent there from being the idea of that there's a supreme being or monistic, or that there is somebody or something to attain to. All of these things are represented by this statement. And so these statements are saying there isn't anything like that there. And so it is a preventative strike to somebody to say, aha, this is monistic, or aha, this is this way Buddhism, there's a supreme Buddha. And the others are little bodhisattvas. But it isn't in this way. That's why this discussion between Manjusri and the Buddha is taking place, and Subhuti that comes in as well, that's there, that are representing like the disciple and the bodhisattva and the Buddha. And they're exchanging information, because what they want to do is they want to clarify this idea of what emptiness is, why a bodhisattva comes into samsara. You would think that they go, hey, I made it out of here, I'm not going to go back. But there's some of you that went to college and you never left, right? If you go to college and you never leave, they make you a professor. Why do you go back to school? Because you want others to share what you've learned. You want to share that. That's what a bodhisattva does. Even if the people that you are presenting to, they truly don't exist. It is in this way because it's the natural function of the mind. So I'm trying to give you this perspective so that you don't see bodhisattvas or the bodhisattva path separate from your own actions, or the Buddha mind separate from your own mind. That's what is so powerful with this particular sutra. And I haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. Okay. World honored one, he who practices rightly sees no such thing as a self or other, existence or non-existence. So it's saying the one who practices right, that has right view, there's neither existence nor non-existence. Well, what is that? Well, Nagarjuna. And so it's taking you to mind. That's the only place that you can go, because you go, it's not this, it's not eternal, it's not nihilistic, it's this, and why is Manjushri coming back? Why? Because he clearly comprehends all dharmas. Dharmas here with a little d, meaning he comprehends phenomena. And what is the most important thing that we have to know about phenomena? It's all created by the mind. So that's important for us, the shortcut. It's all created by the mind. So if we understand that, everything else is a I hate to call it a category, because we'll get into that in a moment, but it falls within that. It's not a category. Okay. So then, and when we say that clearly comprehends all dharmas, how do the dharmas appear? The first thing the Buddha taught, the 12 nidanas, law of causation. We're clear about that. We're clear. And then the sutras say that the Buddha is not other than pratika samappada, causes and conditions never fail. It is in this way. But we want to personify the Buddha and create the Buddha in our own image. This is a mistake. That's why I say, don't think that when you die, you're going to go in front of the Buddha and he's going to be up there wearing a golden robe on a golden throne. And, you'd think that he'd get a change of clothes in 2,500 years. I point that out not as being like irreverent, but just the absurdity of clinging to these kinds of things, that the Buddha is some supreme being. It is not in that way. That's the difference in Buddhism, that it's not really a religion. Even though we do have devotion and these strange things happen, but it's ultimately pointing to the nature of mind, which is the self nature of the mind. And it's not easy for us to break down our samsaric impressions of different parts, but that's exactly what's going on in the sutra. The Buddha asked, Manjushri, what should one rely on for the right practice? So what do we rely on for the right practice? So Ian, your student comes up to you and says, great honored one, what should I rely on for my practice? He who practices rightly relies on nothing. He goes, boy, that was a tight one. The Buddha asked, does he not practice according to the path? So doesn't somebody practice according to the path, the Tao? If he practices in accordance with anything, his practice would be conditioned. So if you say, I want to get out of here, I'm going to practice really hard, to reach nirvana. Or you guys don't like to go to nirvana. Where do you like to go? Pure Land. There you go. Pure Land. Everybody wants to go to the Pure Land. Like it's some kind of a free Disneyland or something. You want to go to the Pure Land. Krispy Kreme. They have Krispy Kremes in the Pure Land. It's on the outskirts though. Let's see. So he says, it will be conditioned. A conditioned practice is not one of equality. Why? Because it is not exempt from arising, abiding, and perishing. So if you are going to try to attain something, that's an arising and perishing of your samsaric body to be replaced by this Buddha body or whatever. So it's the wrong way of looking at things. You go, no, that's not quite right. The Buddha asked Manjusri, are there any categories in the unconditioned? What do you think? Are there any categories? Meaning, are there different levels in the unconditioned?
I think so. Although, but you can, unconditioned, you can do anything.
But are there categories of like really good unconditioned, just barely unconditioned, and like really great unconditioned?
It's regular, medium, and vintage.
Yeah, that was before Starbucks, right? I just give me a large. What's this venti business? And so are there any categories? It couldn't be the unconditioned if there were categories, because the unconditioned says there's no categories, there's nothing, it's unconditioned, there's nothing there. You know, like, oh, you just barely made it in. Like some of you just go, oh my God, I can't believe I got a 69 on my driving test. I made it by 1 point, you know. No, you're in, right? It's like, it's like barely unconditioned, you know, you barely made it in. No, there's no categories in the condition. That's why they call it this emptiness, but not the emptiness like empty space. Manjusri answered, world honored one, if there were categories in the unconditioned, then the unconditioned would be conditioned and no longer be unconditioned. Makes sense. The Buddha said, if the unconditioned can be realized by saints, okay, bodhisattvas, then there is a thing, then there is such a thing as unconditioned. How can you say that there are no categories and things have no categories and the saints have transcended categories? That is why I say, are there no categories? So he's saying, well, if the bodhisattvas can realize the unconditioned, then there must be something. So there must be some categories here. And then the Buddha asked Manjusri, would you not say that you attained sainthood? Because what he's talking about, the unconditioned, he's talking about levels of from, let's say, the sound hearer to the disciple, to the Pratika Buddha, to a bodhisattva, and then to a Buddha. So he's now asking Manjusri, would you not say that you've attained sainthood? You know, are you a bodhisattva or not? You mean, I've been cultivating you for all this time. Are you, you know, I'm relying on you to say nothing, but you said something. But the thing is, so have you attained sainthood? This is important. Well, yeah, I want to know if he attained sainthood or not. Manjusri, and this is important here. Manjusri asked him in turn, world honor one, suppose one asks a magically produced person, would you not would you not say you have attained Buddhahood? So let's say I produce a mechanical puppet here, and I ask the mechanical puppet that I made, right? And said to the bottle, have you attained Buddhahood? It doesn't respond. So this is this the response of Sariputra or Vilamakritti? And so, but if you ask a magically produced person, they're going like, how did I get here? And so they say, you know, have you attained sainthood? What would be his reply? And the Buddha answered Manjusri, one cannot speak of attainment or non-attainment of a magically produced person. This would I could sell this on eBay for a lot if I could say that this Buddha is enlightened, right? They go, I want to see that. Are you enlightened? Of course I'm enlightened. That's not possible. Even if I said, are you enlightened? It said, no, I'm not enlightened. That'd still be pretty impressive, maybe half the price, but still a talking bottle is pretty good. Manjushri Manjushri asked, has the Buddha not said that all things are like an illusion? So I have. If all things are illusions, why do you ask me whether I've attained Buddhahood? So Manjushri is going to the part to say, first you have to prove that I exist before you can say I've attained anything. What does the Heart Sutra say of it? There is no wisdom. That's Manjushri's province, right? So now you've neutralized him completely. And then it says, nor any attainment. Boom. The magically produced person disappears. It's Manjushri. So he's saying, we're looking at to whether or not Manjushri himself exists. Can we say that Manjushri exists? Is he not produced in samsara, appearing in samsara? This is heavy duty stuff because you have to be careful. Okay, if the floor drops out, don't just drop down, and then end up, becoming some other religion. What happened to you? They kicked me out of being a Buddha. Why? I don't exist. But it's not that way, but it's very interesting here. The Buddha said, Manjushri, what equality in the three vehicles have you realized? He sidesteps it. He doesn't answer him about that. And then he says, what equality in the three vehicles have you realized? And here the three vehicles there's two interpretations of the three vehicles, because vehicle in Sanskrit is yana. And so it could be Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. But at this point, when this sutra is produced, there's no division between Chinese Mahayana and Tibetan Mahayana. So these three vehicles are from the point of view of a disciple and a pratika Buddha, or sound hearer, somebody who hears the Dharma, and pratika Buddha, which is one that is self-enlightening. And what self-enlightening, they are, sorry, little spider or something, X-spider. Okay, so there's a, and also then a bodhisattva or a Buddha. And so in this way, they're asking about these three vehicles and saying, that, let me see, going back to it, what equality have you attained in those three vehicles? And he says, I have realized the equality of the state of Buddhahood. So he's realized this equality of the state of Buddhahood. And so he jumps over those three vehicles and goes straight to Buddhahood. And then the Buddha asked him, have you attained the state of Buddhahood? So he's asking Manjushri. Remember, I told you, Manjushri is capable of Buddhahood, but didn't go that route just to come back to fulfill vows and deliver sentient beings, just like Wan Yin. And so he says then, he's coming back to this attainment. Have you attained the state of Buddhahood? So Manjushri says, if the world honored one has attained the state of Buddhahood, so have I. Very incredible response here, because he's throwing it back and saying, no, I'm tired of explaining stuff. You explain this one. If you have, then I have. So he throws it back on the Buddha. Thereupon, Subhuti, who was listening to this and scratching his head and going like this, you know, asked Manjushri, has not the Tathagata attained the state of Buddhahood? This is a Buddha, and you're asking him if he's attain the state. How can you ask him that question? Manjushri in turn asked, have you attained the state of Shravakahood? He was asking Subhuti, have you attained the state of being a disciple? So Shravakahood is a sound hearer. I think you call it Shengwen. And so then he says, I attained the state of Buddhahood right now. I actually got a word right. Okay, I have to put the little signs, otherwise it doesn't work. So if I said Shen Wen, you go, huh? Okay. Subhuti answered, the liberation of a saint is neither an attainment nor non-attainment. So both the Buddha and Manjushri made him answer it. It's neither an attainment nor non-attainment. So it is. Likewise, the liberation of the Tathagata is neither a state or a non-state. Subhuti said, he's like, his head's like going like this, you know, and he says, Manjushri, you're not taking care of the novice bodhisattvas in teaching the Dharma this way. So he's saying to them, you know, this is too deep. This is important to me because when I read this sutra, I realized I was on the right path. Even though I'm teaching you at a little bit high level, I'm taking care of you. I'm taking care of you. I'm getting you to see the things, even if you may not understand it completely, it's okay. But so Subhuti was saying, you're talking too deep for him, you know, send him back to do the ABC, sit on the cushion, quiet, don't think of anything. And you go, wow, what's that? I want to know about states and non-states. No, just quiet, don't talk about that. No, it is in this way that you progress. And so Manjushri asks, Subhuti, what do you think? Suppose a physician in taking care of his patients does not give them the acrid, sour, bitter, and astringent medicines. Is he helping them recover or causing them to die? Subhuti, he's causing them to suffer and die instead of giving them peace and happiness. Such is the case with the teacher of the Dharma. If in taking care of others, he fears that they might be frightened, so he hides from them the profound meaning of the Dharma, instead speaks to them in terms of irrelevant words and fancy phrases. Then he's causing the sentient being to suffer birth, old age, disease, and death, instead of offering them health, peace, bliss, and nirvana. When this Dharma was explained, nothing happened to you here? Shoot. When this Dharma was explained, 500 monks were freed from attachment of any Dharma and were cleansed of their defilements and liberated in mind. 8,000 devas left the taints of the mundane world far behind and attain the pure Dharma eye that sees through all Dharmas. 700 gods resolved to attain supreme enlightenment and vowed, in the future we'll attain the eloquence like that of Manjusri. None of you? It's just enough if you just, this gives you faith, okay? And it's important because this is important to me to explain things on a level that maybe you're not used to, but it's okay because it gives you an interest in looking into it yourself, okay? Even today, before I started speaking about this, I've already read the sutra 5 times. I'm not saying in total, I'm talking about today. Okay, I've read it many, many times. But in order to explain it and expound on it, I have to have that faith in it myself. So don't think you're going to read it once and go, oh, that was a good read, you know, what's in the refrigerator, you know, or what's on YouTube, or even worse, I want to play Candy Crush. Okay, so it's important. I was thinking maybe one of you divas might have gotten something out of it. Okay, then the elder Subhuti asked Manjusri, and it's very interesting here because Subhuti is also a wisdom, but he's asking Manjusri, and Manjusri is often referred to as the youthful Manjusri. So he was a young guy. And why was he depicted as a young guy? Because Sariputra was depicted as the elder, and he was an old guy. And they're going like, this is the new stuff, you know, that forget about the roaring 20s or the twist, you know, and whatever. This is a new dance. Okay. So he asked him, do you not explain the Dharma of the Shravaka vehicle to Shravakas? And he says, I follow the Dharmas of all vehicles. Subhuti asked, are you a Shravaka, a Pratika Buddha, or a worthy one, a supremely enlightened one? So he's asking him, again, he's asking him what category he is. And when he's already said that there is no categories in the unconditioned, he's not listening. I am a Shravaka by but my understanding does not come from the speech of others, because remember, Shravakas are sound hearers. I am a Pratika Buddha because I do not abandon great compassion or fear anything. So the Pratika Buddhas, they want to achieve nirvana, but they understand the laws of cause and condition, but they have not penetrated to the great compassion. They do not possess Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi. So that's why whenever you see Pratika Buddha in the sutras, it is somebody that is like self-learned, but they miss the class on compassion. Okay, it's probably the best way to explain it. And they're only practicing for themselves, like an arhat would be practicing in this way. But one Shifu said to me in my first retreat, said, Gilbert, you can become an arhat. And I was going, wow, that's pretty cool. And I went, wait a minute, did he insult me? Because he was, you know, he didn't say bodhisattva, he said arhat. I said, arhat just goes to nirvana. So then I started, and he would always do things like that just to remind me to be a bodhisattva. And once I had stopped him in the hallway at CMC, and you go up the hallway, and I caught him there, and I said, right before retreat, I said, Shifu, you know, I beginning to understand this. It's like you're riding a bike, but then you take the Dharma like a stick, and you put it in the spoke of the wheels, and it stops everything, and then you fall over. And he went, somehow he understood my crazy analogy, and he goes, yes, no, that's the way it is. And I was walking away, and he says, but Gilbert, he has a little finger, like a wiry long finger, and he says, but remember, it only stops for you. And that was important. These little tiny vignettes that I had with him that kept pushing me towards bodhisattva, towards taking the care of others is very interesting, because it was like, okay, you got this, but don't stop there. No, you have to keep going. And that's what's happening. So he, Manjushri is exhibiting what a bodhisattva does. And he says, I am a worthy one, the supreme enlightened one, but I still do not give up my original vows. Remember, he vowed to deliver innumerable sentient beings. So even though you could say he's reached Buddhahood, if it could be said, but it really can't, he has not abandoned his vows so his work is in the human realm. And he says, and then Subhuti asked him, well, why are you a Shravaka? Because I cause sentient beings to hear the Dharma they have not. Well, why are you a Preta Buddha? Because I thoroughly comprehend the dependent origination of all dharmas. So he understands all of that. And then he says, why are you a worthy one, a supremely enlightened one? Because I realize that all things are equal in the Dharma Dhatu. So in the Dharma Dhatu being the Dharmakaya, the appearances in the Dharmakaya, it's a state of equanimity. All of those things are there. And Subhuti asked, Manjushri, in what stage do you really abide? Come on, tell me, what stage do you really abide? I want to know. I abide in every stage. Subhuti asked, could it be that you also abide in the stage of ordinary people? I definitely abide in the stage of ordinary people. With what esoteric implication do you say that? So he's saying, what secret meaning do you say that? Because you're a bodhisattva, a mahasattva, and you're saying that you're slumming with the regular people? What is the secret meaning? I don't understand that. Essentially what he's saying is that there's something secret to what you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about. How could you possibly be with the regular people? I say so because all dharmas are equal by nature. Subhuti asked, if all dharmas are equal, where are such dharmas as the stages of Shravakas, Preta Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Buddhas established? So I say, if they're all equal, how come there's these different levels? Manjushri answered, as an illustration, consider empty space. Okay? Put yourself in empty space in the 10 directions. People speak of Eastern space, Western space, Southern space, and Northern space. The 4 immediate spaces, the space above, the space below, and so forth. Such distinctions are spoken of, although empty space itself is devoid of these distinctions. It's not like, how do you get to space? Well, you're in space right now, but you go down this way and make a left at the southern space and then turn at the northern space. There's no distinctions. There's no road signs. There's nothing there. All of it is mine. And this is showing you the idea of this void and the ultimate emptiness of all dharmas. They're there. Because all of the dharmas are empty, one can traverse any category without saying that there is a category there. Because you're just going, I'm going to the place they call Earth, but it's not really real. They think it's real, but it's not. But there's a work to do there. Subhuti asks, have you entered the realization of the sainthood and forever separated from samsara? It's like some kind of a wedding vow, right? You solemnly swear you're going to enter into the state of sainthood, and so help you God, you're never going to go back to samsara. I do. No, it isn't that way. I'm saying this because you have to see the level of what Subhuti is asking him, but it's our level. It's our questions that Subhuti is asking. We don't understand this. But when you begin to understand and see this, it changes the way that you look at the sutra. The sutra is really, even without saying the word cosmic, a cosmic map of how everything is or is thus. Here is his answer. I have entered it. I have gone into samsara and emerged from it. So he's emerged from it. He's come out of it. Well, and then Subhuti asked him, why did you emerge from it after you entered it? Virtuous one, you should know that this is a manifestation of wisdom and ingenuity of a bodhisattva. He truly enters realization of the sainthood and becomes separated from samsara. Then, as a method to save sentient beings, he emerges from that realization. So he goes into it, and his realization of the sainthood is that everything is empty. This is not real. It's an illusion. And then comes out of it, But then he goes, I'm not going to leave the people there behind. Even though they're illusory, there's work to be done there. Subhuti, suppose an expert archer plans to harm a bitter enemy, and mistaking his beloved son in the wilderness for the enemy, he shoots an arrow at him, and his son shouts, I have done nothing wrong. Why do you wish to harm me? At once, the archer's running, like super Marvel comic speed, is swifter than the arrow and dashes towards it and catches the arrow before it does any harm. A bodhisattva is like this. In order to train and subdue Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, he attains nirvana. However, he emerges from it and does not fall into the stages of Shravaka and Pratika Buddha. This is why it is called the Buddha stage, because he doesn't buy into it. He doesn't buy into, I got to get out. He emerges from it and emerges then also from nirvana. And then he does his work in this way. Sorry, there's a lot of thoughts coming in, comparisons to Christianity and Jesus, but I'll leave those off to the side. How can a bodhisattva attain the stage? If bodhisattvas dwell in all stages and yet dwell nowhere, they can attain the stage. As I mentioned, there's a wonderful sutra called the dwelling place of Manjusri. And it's just in this way. You dwell in everywhere, but you don't dwell there. Then that's the stage, because it's an omniscience of the Buddha mind. If they can discourse on all stages but do not abide in the lower stage, they can attain this Buddha mind. So if they can go wherever they go and they go, you want a beer? I'll take a rate check on it. They don't want the beer. So they don't abide in the samsara, but they're there and they're training people. Then this is how it works. There was a movie with John Travolta called Phenomena as a fallen angel. And I remember he was there and he always wore this big coat to hide his wing, but he was there dancing, I could not see Manjusri going to some pub or something and dancing and having a beer. Michael, was it Michael? Okay. And so, but in any case, this is like the difference, you know, in terms of looking at this and seeing how it's done. He enters in, but he doesn't have to do all of the things that the samsaric people are doing just to be in the samsara. But he still follows the conventions. He has to eat, you know, drink water and take care of his body and carry on his task. Okay. All right. If they realize egolessness, yet bring sentient beings to maturity, they can attain this stage. When we talk about bringing sentient beings to maturity, in the sutras, they talk about the maturation of one's dharma. And the maturation is the maturation of your practice. Some of you are just beginning. Some of you have been doing it for a long time. Some of you, I clearly see, and I talk to you and say, your dharma is maturing. So it's getting deeper, stronger, more conviction, as evidenced by your bodhi that you demonstrate. And so I don't see anybody here going like, I'm going to take this class, get enlightened, and I'm out of here. You know, I don't see that. I see you all as having an interest in understanding this is the nature of a bodhisattva. This is the big key. All of these things are the key, that the turning point from Theravadan to bodhisattva. Before, the Theravadan weren't that much interested in bodhisattva characteristics or bodhisattva, talking about bodhisattvas. They're just referring to the Buddha. But here, there was a fleshing out of the pantheon in Buddhist cosmology of different bodhisattvas and their purposes here. And so it became richer, but it again had to, like when a new crop comes in, you have to turn the soil. And there was this turning of the soil in Mahayana to explain and not make it inconsistent with established Buddha Dharma. And that's what's happening here. Is it still the Buddha Dharma from the study of the elders, but it's just being fleshed out a little bit more and understanding the purposes there. And I think that that's why I gravitated towards this over any other kind of religions or whatever, because this was something that I had faith in. I really had faith in, for many reasons. Some, the demonstrations of faith, some super mundane things, but just the doctrine and everything, and that this makes more sense as to how things come into being. So I'll continue. Let me see how much I have left for the next time. Not too much more, and so I'll still have time for questions. But I wanted to read you this so that you have an idea of what a bodhisattva is and how a bodhisattva functions and what mind is. There's a lot of stuff in here, and some of it you'll catch, some of it you won't, but it's okay. Just go back, you know, and have you ever been taken somewhere to visit somewhere, and then you revisit it with somebody else, and you go, oh, let me show you this and show you that. I remember this. And you're taking somebody to share with them your experience. You don't quite remember everything, but the more and more times you revisit it, the more you can show people and explain to them. And it's the same thing with the Dharma, is that the more you read it, the more you experience it, the more you digest it, the more you can bring out to show the subtleties of it. And even if the people can't take all of it in at one time, they still feel your excitement, your encouragement, your interest in this, your wonder about it. And they go, I can feel that. And I would like to feel that too. I would like to understand it that way. And so you make an effort to do that. And that's all I'm doing, is I'm just coming in and presenting this to you and saying, this is good stuff, you know? And So don't be afraid or don't think, oh, well, I only understood 5%. That was 5% that you know now that you didn't know before. Not bad. Okay. It's still money in the bank. I see in studying the Dharma, it's all money in the bank. It's all something I can use. And I never think, well, that's a waste of time. Sometimes I feel a waste of time when I read some scholarly articles because you see this guy's not, he's way off, but the sutras, I never look at it that way, or the treatises of the master. So hopefully you can have that too. So we'll take our break right now.